Hello, everybody. Welcome to our live show again, and thank you for joining us. Today's topic is how to make smart decisions in business. You can share the video, you can invite friends, and if you have any questions, you can type them in the comment section. And if you have any comment that is relevant to what we're discussing or helpful to the discussion, you're welcome to also comment it to help others. And joining us today is Themba. We've had Themba before. Themba Mazbuko is a renowned conference speaker and businessman. And if you'd want to know more about Themba, you can visit the website www.duplexinstitute.com. Themba, do you have anything for us for the financial news for this week?
Thank you, Tefadzwa. I've got three themes for this week. The first theme that I have is about some of the luminaries, let me put it that way, we have passed on. And I want to talk about two luminaries that have passed on in this week and some of the lessons that we can learn from them, particularly with regard to longevity. That's the first theme. The second theme is about an emerging picture that we are seeing, particularly in South Africa, and it's one of retrenchments, especially in the mining sector, and to some extent in the media sector as well. So that's the second theme. The first theme is about digital sales. And I don't want to use the word flop of Black Friday in South Africa, and I don't know what has been your experience. And I'm asking this question to our viewers and to our listeners. What was your experience of Black Friday and Cyber Monday? In fact, let me start with that commentary on Black Friday and Cyber Monday. In South Africa, we had Black Friday on the 24th of November. And when we look at the actual retail transactions that were executed on that day, they were much less than in previous years. In fact, some of the retailers in South Africa actually noted a decrease of about 36% in retail sales. And some people are calling it the flop of Black Friday. It's attributable to a number of factors. And let's talk about three factors. Number one is the high cost of living. But also, secondly, it's got to do with the timing of the day. In South Africa, many people get paid on the 25th, and Black Friday was on the 24th. So that could have been a factor there. Another factor could have been, some of the retailers, because of the tough economic conditions, were not able to come up with attractive deals to consumers. So Black Friday was not so good a Black Friday, particularly to retailers. There was one trend though, and the trend that people noticed is that of the Black Friday transactions that took place, there was an increase in online transactions. So we are seeing an increasing number of people preferring to do online, purchases. And I can almost predict that in the future, most of the transactions are going to be done via e-commerce channels. And that's a trend that every business person should be interested in. During the week, and here I'm talking about online and e-commerce transactions again. During the week, Naspers, which is one of the largest South African companies listed on the Johannesburg Stock Exchange, published their results. And those results were quite interesting. Obviously, they were able to double their profit. But one of the things that I found interesting is that their e-commerce portfolio, which has been loss-making for quite some time, is actually breaking even. They are executing a number of e-commerce transactions in India because that's where most of the software engineering apparently is taking place. So my point on the first theme that is emerging is how e-commerce and online transactions are actually gathering momentum. So when we come back to Black Friday, yes, we've seen a slump in sale, particularly with regard to people walking in the stores and trying to get deals. But online, some people have been quite active, and there were quite some transactions executed online, and that's a trend that it will take place. So if you are not taking your business online, if you are not beginning to notice e-commerce, if you're not planning to make investments in some of these digital investments, I think you're getting left in terms of the trends that are emerging. The second thing that I would want to talk about is retrenchments. So this week, we had quite a number of companies in South Africa indicating that they are considering retrenching some of their employees. And these companies are concentrated in the mining sector. There is also one company that made an indication that they will be retrenching 1/3 of their staff. And that's a company in the media sector called Independent Media. And it's got to do with, there used to be a paper company in printing newspapers, and we're seeing that trend going. And many newspaper companies have been able to take their publications online. I think one of the things that has happened with this particular company is how they've been slow to embrace how people are consuming media, these days. And that's what happens. If you get left behind a trend, you are going to suffer, the consequences. So independent media gave an indication that they will be retrenching something like 128 people, which is about 30 to 40% of their staff. In the mining industry, Anglo American has given an indication they are retrenching about 141 people in their head office and in other parts of the group as well. And one of the things that's interesting in South Africa is how the government has moved in swiftly to plead with Anglo to execute their retrenchments after the elections. As you know, for politicians, it doesn't look good if business and commerce is retrenching and we are about to have an election. Wesizwe Platinum, which is a company in South Africa, indicated that they will be retrenching 571 people out of their total workforce of 761. That's a huge number. And it's got to do with the decline in platinum prices. We've also seen a decline in coal prices as well. And, ArcelorMittal, which has been very successful in the past, also gave an indication that they could be retrenching about 3,500 people. And that's got nothing to do mainly with commodity prices. It's just the inefficiency of Transnet. Transnet being the logistics company that is moving goods via rail and via the ports in South Africa. It has had, huge problem. Sibanye-Stillwater has indicated that they will retrench close to 4,100, people, which is about 9% of their staff. I can go on and go on, but there are two particular points that I want to raise on that particular trend. The one thing is, given the uncertainty in the environment that we are operating in, as an employee, you cannot rely on continued employment. The reality is it may happen that you may be retrenched. And therefore, it becomes very important for us to be prepared for that eventuality. And there are two ways in which you can prepare yourself. Number one, always operate with an emergency account equivalent to 3 months of your salary. What an emergency account allows you to do, or an emergency reserve, is to survive for those months that you are looking for a job should you be retrenched. Secondly, learn about investing, because in South Africa, some of these employees who are being retrenched will be entitled to get retrenchment packages. If you do not know anything about long-term investing, you will end up wasting all that money and you will die poor with very little saved for retirement. The third thing is give yourself options. Learn about entrepreneurial skills. I think when you are retrenched, it's not the end of your life. There are exciting things that are happening there. I've spoken about the trend as far as e-commerce is concerned. I'm seeing quite a lot of opportunities. So even if you are retrenched, it's so easy to start your business these days, provided you have developed the entrepreneurial skills that are needed for you to be able to run a business. So that's a trend that we are seeing. Obviously, mining is a cyclical business. And being a cyclical business, it may happen that these commodity prices will pick up at some stage. And it's one thing that we also need to be aware of. Sometimes when you are in business, you don't, in your planning, sometimes you lose sight of the fact that we are living in an uncertain environment. We are, sometimes we are exposed to cyclical industries. And it's something that we would need to take into account when we are doing our planning. The last thing that I would want to talk about is these two luminaries that passed on this week. And I will tell you, Tafadzo, why I am speaking about these two individuals that passed on. I'm actually projecting these two individuals on the screen, and the title there is Lives Lived Well. So the first person who passed on this Tuesday is a guy called Charles Munger. Charles died at the age of 99. He is well known for being the vice president of Berkshire Hathaway. Berkshire Hathaway is the company that Warren Buffett, runs. So to put it simply, Charles Munger was essentially Warren Buffett's sidekick. He was a confidant of Warren Buffett, a lawyer by profession, and somebody who was well known in the investment field. And there are two particular things that I remember Charles for. I remember Charles, number one, for his famous statement, about 100,000. He used to say to people, 100,000 is, he was talking about wealth creation. And he used to say that when you reach 100,000 in assets, here we're talking about US dollars, so you can convert it into your own currency. That's the money that you need to gather momentum in investment. So he used to say, do whatever it takes to get your first 100,000, because your first 100,000 is the most difficult 100,000 that you will get. He said, do whatever it can, even if it means going for days without eating and relying on food stamps, which is an American system to buy food, then do that to get your first 100,000. He is also known for his views on cryptocurrencies. He was a guy who was not so interested in cryptocurrencies. So he used to refer to Bitcoin as noxious poison. And he used to refer to digital assets as partly fraud and partly delusion. So it's well known for that. But I remember Charles, for his frugal lifestyle. Just as we also talk about Warren Buffett and his frugal lifestyle, he died when he had 2.6 billion. That was his net worth. He could have been worth more, but he was a philanthropist and he used to give money. So he used to give money to universities and so forth. So he could have died with a net worth more than 2.6 billion. But at the time of his death, at the age of 99, he was worth 2.6 billion. And he's known for living in the same house, Tafadzo, for 70 years. Being a billionaire, he never changed houses. He was all about happiness. And he said, look, living in a big house does not cause me to be happy. And as part of his happiness formula, Tafadzo, he had this rule: get rid of toxic people in your life and you will be happy. And so he didn't like debt, obviously. And the other interesting thing about Charles Munger is that, we always have people who always say, go to the gym, you will live long. By the way, there is no empirical study that says people with muscles and who go to the gym every day actually live long. There aren't such studies. I'm not saying people shouldn't exercise. Charles Munger didn't like exercise. He never exercised his whole life. In fact, he actually used to eat donuts. Obviously, he ate donuts in moderation. And because, him and Warren Buffett had invested in Coca-Cola, he actually used to drink Diet Coke. So he didn't care much about fitness, but he died 1 month shy of his 100th year birthday. So if he had not died in this month and he had waited until December, he would have turned 100 years. Charles Munger. We will always remember Charles Munger for all the investment advice and for assisting in Warren Buffett since 1956. He has been a close confidant of Warren Buffett. And part of the philosophy that I have about investment is actually shaped by this person. I see our time is going on. I would have wanted to talk about Henry Kissinger as well. But the point that I'm making about these two individuals is that going to the gym, exercising, eating healthy is very important, Tafadzo. But I'm beginning to realize that there are other factors that account for longevity. And, I would want to single out two factors, that we learn from these two individuals. Number one, always live a purposeful life. Commit yourself to purpose. What I see most of the time is that people that are driven by purpose tend to live longer. And so when somebody comes to me for coaching, before I coach them on finances, I would want to understand what their purpose is in life, because purpose is very, very important. And even when you make money, what you do with that money is also very important. As long as you're going to use that money to achieve your purpose, then that money is going to last for a long time. The other thing that we learn about these two individuals is that having meaningful relationships in life also accounts for longevity. There are certain people who do not have deep relationships in their lives, and they tend to be lonely. And especially if you are lonely in your old age, I can almost assure you, you will not live long, because that's a factor that is very important as far as longevity, is concerned. Charles Munger used to get rid of toxic people. Charles Munger had a very deep relationship with Warren Buffett and some other people. And by the way, Warren Buffett is 93. He's still the CEO and chairperson of Berkshire Hathaway. By the time that Charles Munger died at the age of 99, obviously he was in a wheelchair, but he was mentally sharp. So it's not like he was sitting under a tree, and that's what purpose does in our lives. Tafadzo, I don't have time to talk about Henry Kissinger, who also died on Wednesday this past week, but we will always remember Henry Kissinger, the former Secretary of State in America. He died at the age of 100. And I would want to live beyond 100. And there are lessons that we can learn from these people. One day I will have time and I will tell you about the lessons to be learned from the life of Henry Kissinger. But let me stop there, Tafadzo, so that we can move on.
Thank you very much for that. Our challenge to our listeners this afternoon is do you know your purpose? If you made an effort to find your why on earth, as Themba said, for you to live long, you need to have a purpose. If for you to use your money effectively, you need to know your purpose. And people who know their purpose also have values. Roy Disney says decision-making is easy when your values are clear. I'm sure it's also easier when you know your purpose to make decisions and to make the right decisions. And you also mentioned about relationships. It takes a lot of decision making to deal with toxic people and to manage relationships. So yeah, Gillian Michaels also says that whenever you're making an important decision, first ask if it gets you closer to your goals or further away. If the answer is closer, pull the trigger. If it's further away, make a different choice. Conscious choice making is a critical step in making your dreams a reality. Themba, what is a smart business decision? And do you have examples of bad decisions in business?
This is a huge topic about making decisions, Tafadzwa, and I can go on and go on to talk about this topic. But I like one of the points that you have raised there, Tafadzwa, about making decisions that are consistent with our values. So one way of making a smart business decision is to have a well-developed value system and always making decisions that are consistent with our values. I think things can easily go wrong when you make decisions that are popular. So we will talk quite a lot about smart business decisions or smart decision making. Smart decision making has nothing to do with validation or endorsement or popularity of the decision that you are making. I see that many people are afraid of making smart business decisions because they are always afraid of what will people think if they hear that I did this? What will people think if they hear that I made this decision? When we talk about smart business decision, it's got nothing to do with how popular the decision is, how many people endorse the decision, but one of the considerations there is alignment with your values. We will talk about principles of smart decision making. Apart from alignment with your values, Tafadzwa, one principle is the consideration of risk. Many people, sometimes forget to consider risk in decision making. So we are talking about value-based decision making, as a component of making smart decisions. We are also talking about risk-based decision making. Never make a decision and you have not considered risk. When we talk about considering risk, we are essentially talking about always ask yourself, what is the worst thing that can happen after I have made this decision. Let's define what smart decisions are. Or maybe before I define what a smart decision is, let me go to the opposite, and let me talk about stupid decisions. So I'm contrasting smart decisions and stupid decisions. Stupid decisions are decisions that have got a very small payoff, but the potential colossal negative impact or the downside of making that decision is very huge. So you're talking about a decision that has got a small payoff, but the downside risk is very large. When you find yourself in such a situation, just know that it's a stupid decision. So a stupid decision has got a high risk and a small reward. So here, when we talk about smart decision making, it's about always keeping in mind that risk return trade-off, which I will explain later on. So a stupid decision is one that has got high risk and small reward. A smart decision, business decision, on the other hand, has got a small risk or a calculated risk, but a large payoff or a large reward. So let me give you examples of stupid decisions. Before I talk about stupid business decisions, probably let me talk about stupid day-to-day decisions. Driving drunk is a stupid decision. Why? Because the payoff there is very small, but the risk is very huge. We see people driving drunk. whenever you're driving drunk, just know that it's an example of a stupid decision. Jumping into water or jumping into a river without knowing how deep it is a stupid decision. Sometimes people just jump into something. They haven't even tested how deep, the swimming pool is or the river is. Not wearing a seatbelt when you are driving is a stupid decision. Why is it a stupid decision? Because research shows that every time you drive without putting on your seatbelt, you are reducing at least 4 years of your life, right? That's what research tells us. Based on the accidents. And smoking is also a stupid decision. Why? Obviously there are things that you gain, but the risk is too large. When you talk about livers that can be destroyed, and there's quite a lot of evidence to that effect. So that's what a stupid decision is. It's things that you would want to do. They've got a high risk, but the payoff is very small. We can include under stupid, decisions, things like driving dangerously, like speeding. I don't know what trade or what payoff people get from that. Maybe you can arrive early, but the risk is too high when you look at the downside. And we can even talk about so many things in business. Cheating on your taxes is a stupid business decision, or in being involved in any sort of illegality and not complying with the rules of business. Maybe there are certain regulatory rules in business. That's stupid, decision making. We can also talk about investing into a product that you have not done research on, that you don't understand, and you invest because somebody has made a recommendation. How many times does somebody approach you and say, can you invest in this particular product? And then you haven't done your research, you don't even understand how the product works, and you then go on and invest into such a product. That's a stupid decision. It's a very stupid decision. Getting into business with people that you do not know. Most of the time, we have business collapsing and we've got business arguments because people have gotten into business with partners that they are not compatible with, and partners who do not share the same values as them. So if you go into a business venture with somebody whom you do not know, just because you've got a particular interest, it's a stupid decision, right? Quitting your job without a strategy of what to do next. So many people will say, I will quit my job and go. That's a stupid decision. So Tafatso, I've given you examples of plain stupid decisions. What characterizes stupid decisions is high risk, small reward. What characterizes smart decisions is low risk, high payoff. And let me share with you something that I heard. It's a quote that I heard, and I would want to give it to our listeners and to our viewers. The quote goes something like this: smart decisions are a consequence of experience, and experience is a consequence of bad decisions. Now, what does that mean? It means that it's not like you're going to make smart decisions from the day that you are born. If you see those people who make smart decisions, it's because they've accumulated experience over life. And that experience has come from bad decisions that they've made in their lives. So, which means that don't waste a bad decision that you have made in your life. Learn from it. We'll also learn from some of the bad decisions that people have made in their lives. On this platform, we always advocate that people should have mentors, should have coaches. And one of the reasons why we advocate that people should have coaches and mentors is so that you can learn from their life experience and do not repeat some of the mistakes that they have made, in their lives. But talking about business decisions and some of the worst business decisions that have been made, in life, most of the, bad decisions that businesses have made, if you were to Google Tafadzo, the worst business decisions or bad decisions made by business people, in most cases, the list of examples that you are going to get have to do with businesses that missed an opportunity of doing something big. And let's just establish these principles. Not making a decision is also sometimes stupid decision making. So you will be faced with a situation where you have to make a decision. And sometimes there are people who are, who don't want to just make decisions, and they are fearful of making decisions. That in itself is stupid decision making. So as a business person, as somebody who wants to make progress in life, you have to be, in a position where with the passage of time, you are making smart business decisions and you are making smart, decisions for your life. So some of the, examples, and I'll give here a few examples of the worst business decisions, that have been, that people have made, here. So we all know the company Microsoft. Microsoft is one of the valuable software companies, and Microsoft made Bill Gates a billionaire. But during the development of Microsoft, IBM, which is, another company, made an announcement that they wanted to get an operating system, which is what Windows is. It's an operating system. And so they went to a software expert called Gary Kildare, who was, a well-known software, expert. I know you haven't heard about this guy called Gary Kildare, but he was a well-known software expert, probably much more than, Bill Gates. And he was the first person who was approached by IBM to supply this operating system. And guess what Gary Kildare, did? He missed the meeting where he was supposed to talk to IBM about, this operating system. He actually decided to go and, fly his plane. And, IBM took the opportunity to Bill Gates and Microsoft, and everything is history. This guy, Gary Kildare, would have been the Bill Gates. He would have been the Bill Gates of today. And that was a wrong decision that he made, to go flying his plane when he should have been, talking to, somebody, who could have made him a billionaire and would have had impact. So as business people, sometimes we do things that we are not supposed to do, meeting great people, meeting potential business partners, and then we choose in our time to do something that will not pay us off, at all. You spend that time meeting, flying your plane, then. We can say the same thing with a guy called, Ross Perot. You probably might have heard about Ross Perot. He's one guy who competes for American election. He's also a billionaire. I think he's still a billionaire. But at some point in his life, he had the opportunity to buy Microsoft for a mere 60 million. He thought that the price was too high. So he insisted on them reducing the price to 15 million. And as a result, he passed the opportunity to own, a huge portion of Microsoft. He could have been a billionaire, 100 times over. And that's one of the worst, decisions. And here we are talking about not seeing the potential of something. So some of the worst business decisions that have been made is when people do not see the potential of something, the potential of an offer. And we can say the same thing with a recording company called Decca Records. The Beatles, came and the Beatles went to audition at, at Decca Records. And Decca Records were not impressed by the Beatles. In fact, one of the things that they said to them is that 4-piece groups with guitars are finished. So they misread a trend. They actually thought that no one would buy the Beatles music. And how wrong were they, years down the line when the Beatles became a household name. And we can say the same thing to most of the publishing houses that turned down, Harry Potter, J.K. Rowling's, who wrote the Harry Potter series, actually approached a number of publishers with the publication, and many people were not impressed. And that was a terrible business decision for those publishing house, because they did not see the potential of something. Let me give you another good example of a stupid business decision. Another example of a stupid decisions, and there are so many in the world of business, when somebody comes up with a creative idea and they don't patent their idea. In other words, they don't protect their intellectual property. And there are so many examples of such decisions that have been made in business. So if you've got a brilliant idea, protect it, patent your idea, because there are people that can steal your idea, and you will be one of those people who say, it was my idea, I could have done it, it was me who came up with the idea, after all. Let me end your question, Tafazo, by telling you something that one of my mentors said to me. And I've always used this wisdom in my business. And it sort of summarizes, how decisions should be made. He was talking about making a decision about hiring people. And he said to me, hire slowly and fire fast. Many people in business do the opposite. They hire fast and they fire slowly, right? What he was basically saying is, Temba, when you are building a team for your business, take your time to get the right people on your team. That's good. That's smart decision making. You do your due diligence, you do your research about people, you actually give them the opportunity to prove themselves, and then only give them the job. But if they mess up, there's no tomorrow, you fire fast. But most business people who are not smart, they do the opposite. They hire fast, and then they take forever to fire somebody. And that's not being smart, in business, Tafazo. So let me stop there, but I hope from that response, you now know what smart, business decisions are. Smart business decisions is where people calculate the risk, but the payoff is very large. Stupid decision making is where sometimes people take a high risk and the reward is very small. Stupid decision making also has to do with people missing opportunities, not realizing the potential in something. And as business people, we don't become smart overnight. It's a consequence of experience. Over to you, Tafazo.
Thank you for those insightful ideas, and yeah, I could pick one or two on the stupid, and I refuse to be a stupid person. As Govinda says, he says, all of us start from zero. We take the right decision and become a hero. So as you said, no one is born making the right decisions or smart decisions. It's something that we learn from experience. And as a Christian, I was also challenged when we were sharing. I could even pick up some prayer points. Lord, help me to meet the right people at the right time. Help me not to miss opportunities. So I think when I go back to pray, if someone wants to be smart to make smart decisions in business. I also pray that God will help me to meet the right people, to make the smart decisions, and to be at the right time, and also to see opportunities, even when there's still potential. So yeah, thank you for those insightful ideas. And are there principles that a business person can follow in making smart business decisions?
Thanks, Stefazo. There are principles that I will talk about, but before I talk about those principles, I'm being reminded on, in fact, I'm reminding myself on something that I should mention to our viewers, to our listeners, and this relates to personal financial management. I've seen people make stupid decisions in personal financial management, and I want to give you 3 such examples and hope that none in our audience, in the group of people who will listen to this podcast, will make those decisions. Number 1, using debt to fund your lavish lifestyle. I see these people doing this quite a lot. Sometimes they borrow to fund a lavish lifestyle. In other words, they borrow for consumption. That's very stupid. Never borrow for consumption. Never borrow to buy groceries, to buy clothes, because that's all consumption expenditure. Borrowings are not for that. Borrowings should finance assets that go up in value. Borrowings should finance investment. But those are stupid decisions that people make most of the time, borrowing for the purposes of consumption. That's a no, at all. But obviously, if you are running a business, because business are about creating assets of value, you can actually borrow to pay salaries, because it's part and parcel of funding an asset of value. Another example is what I would call conspicuous consumption. Conspicuous consumption is where you want to make a statement that you have arrived, and you want to tell people of how rich you are, and you make a statement through branded clothes, through the cars that you drive. That's not being wise. It's not being wise at all. It's not being smart. I cannot give you, the number of examples of people who were not known at all. But because they started being conspicuous in their consumption or in their expenditure, even the tax authorities began interested in them. They could have lied low and they would have been in business by now. But when people started investigating them, a lot of shenanigans, came out. And it was all triggered by their consumption, their conspicuous, consumption that they have. Another thing is, don't guarantee, particularly at personal level, is part of personal financial management. Don't guarantee other people's debts. Sometimes people borrow money from a bank, and then you sign as surety. All these suretyship agreements that we sign, that's not making a smart business decision, because that person can default and you can end up losing all your assets. So always consider the risk in something. Tafazo, you asked me the question, are there principles that we can apply if we want to be smart decision makers? I think there are principles, and some of the principles we've spoken about. But as I was reflecting on these particular presentations, I came up with 5 principles, from my own experience. Principle number 1, especially when it comes to strategic business decisions, or even when it comes to life decisions, not even business decisions, but life decisions. Do not make decisions when you are angry. Do not make decisions when you are excited. and do not make decisions under pressure. Some of the stupid decisions that people make in life, it's because they made a life decision under pressure. And when you talk about life decisions, one of the most important life decision is marriage. I know of people who have married too soon. They've married the wrong partner. And sometimes that decision was made because they were put under pressure. They were excited. And there are decisions that people make as well when they are angry. So one of my principles is I don't make decisions when I'm angry, when I'm excited. There are people who have destroyed their businesses out of excitedness. I could have given you an example, Tafadzwa, of a guy called Gerald Ratner, who used to own, Ratner Jewelries. Because of stupidity in business, when people just say something which is plain stupid, he destroyed a 500 million pound, company because of a speech, just a speech that he made. So I've seen this, time and time again, of somebody who builds, something significant, but one day when they are angry, when they are excited, when they are under pressure, they just do something stupid. It could be, and here when we talk about something stupid, it could be a sexual scandal, even when it comes to people who have built ministries and they are men of the cloth, so to speak. Just the mere fact of sleeping with a prostitute, they have destroyed, that has destroyed their entire, ministry. So that's one of my principles, there. The second principle that I have, come up with myself, and you have to come up with your own principles. I don't make decisions to please people. If you are a people pleaser, and one of the considerations in your decision making is what will people think of me, what you will see is that most of the time you will make poor quality decisions. When we talk about smart decision making, we're not talking about pleasing your parents, pleasing the people that you want to to receive validation from. So don't make decisions to please people. There was a time in my life, Tafadzwa, when I would buy because I feel sorry for the salesperson, or I wanted to to just please. I no longer do that these days, because I've lost quite a lot of money. I don't enter into a transaction because I feel sorry for somebody and they're a salesperson. Have you ever met a salesperson who says to you, I'm so hungry, and this is the last deal that if you don't buy from me, you are the last person that can buy from me. And then you just say, look, let me buy so as to please them. That's not how we do business transaction. We don't do business transactions because we feel sorry for people. And in most cases, which takes me to principle number 3. In most cases, you need to separate emotions from what the numbers are saying. When you are in business, just make sure that your decisions are supported by numbers. It's not an emotional thing, because when we are in business, we do not make emotional decisions, particularly when it comes to investments. If the person is not performing and I hired you for a job, I will fire you, right? I might like you as an individual. There are so many people in my business, Tafadzwa, whom I liked as individuals, but I disliked as employees. And I have had to say to them, look, you are a great guy, but you are not doing what I hired you for. Therefore, you are fired. Because if you're emotional about it, you will say, this person is my friend. This person, has got a family to support. That's got nothing to do with it. Let the numbers speak. You are not delivering on sales. And one of the guys that I have had to fire from my business, he needed the job. He was a great person. He tried to assist me in a number of things, but the sales were not there. And he did something unethical, and I fired him fast. It's got nothing to do with emotions. And so we need to separate emotions from decision making. There is a place for considering emotions in decision making, but in most cases in business, you have to separate emotions. And it becomes very important that when you make that decision, you've got the right numbers. And so what I normally do is that I do my due diligence. So say, for example, you are going into a partnership with somebody, I do my research. I'm about to invest in an opportunity. I do my research. I look at the numbers. I do a cost benefit analysis. In other words, I look at the costs, vis-a-vis the benefits. And then I look at the return on investment. And then I do an ROI analysis, a return on investment analysis. I do a cost benefit analysis. I put the numbers on a spreadsheet. And then I let the numbers do the talking and the convincing. It's not an emotional decision. I then say to myself, in what way will it benefit me as a shareholder? Because most of the decisions that we have to make in business have to do with the creation of value to the shareholder. It's got nothing to, other things are very important. We have to consider other stakeholders who are very important. But primarily, the decision has to do with in what way does this decision add value to the shareholders whose funds we are managing for the business. Another principle that I have is I look at the trends. Very, very important. So I gave you examples of people who have missed opportunities because they misread a trend. As a business person, you must always put your fingers on trends because you can never fight a trend, or you can miss an opportunity because you have miscalculated a trend. Today, I spoke to you about Charles Munger, and I might speak to you in the future about Warren Buffett. These are people that I like. But I can also see that these people may be stuck in the past in terms of understanding some of the trends that are happening. So while I've got respect for them, I also need to take into account that they have run their race, but there are things that they may be misreading about the digital economy. Make no mistake, Tafadzo, artificial intelligence is what people are talking about. It's a trend that is here to stay. Digitization, e-commerce. We've heard, for example, that Amazon is coming to South Africa and they will be setting up and doing quite a lot of retail. That will be a game changer for people that are in retail. And so if you are in retail, you cannot ignore the fact that Amazon, which is a very big retailer, is coming to town. You have to respond to that trend. So as a business person, there are certain trends that may pose an existential threat to your business. This thing about the green economy is a trend. For example, it's something that is here to stay. This thing, and today I was reading business news such as Elon Musk is doing internet, via Starlink, and many countries in Africa have already signed up to his internet, because the internet that we have currently is through cables that go under the sea. Now, Elon Musk will be doing internet using Starlink because he's got quite a number of satellites that he has put in space. That's a trend that we cannot ignore right there. As a business person, you need to look at it and say, how does it influence, what I do? We are, in the not so distant future, going to have everyone, even in the rural areas. I can tell you now, Tafadzo, It's very costly in terms of data for somebody maybe in the rural areas to be using a cell phone. But where we are going, everyone, even the people that do not have much money, will have 2 or 3 smartphones. Smartphones are not going to be something that only the rich people will have, and they will have access to cheap internet. And so it will become something that we have to think about as a way of distributing our products. And this also applies to people who run churches. We can't be negative about the internet. It's a platform for us to even preach the gospel. But I see people who are resisting such trends, and they are not taking these trends into account. Another principle is always considering the risk, Tafazo. What can go wrong? What is the worst thing that can go wrong? So that you can calculate the odds, correctly. Another principle that I have is to reflect on my mistakes. So before I make a decision, I have all at the back of my mind what mistakes people have made concerning that particular area. I have got a repository and a database of certain mistakes that business people have made in business. So I don't have to repeat the mistakes. So those are my principles, Tafazo, when it comes to decision making. Over to you.
Thank you, our viewers. If you have any question, you can type in the comment section. If we don't see any questions, it means people are understanding, which is a good thing. It means we are all in the right path of making decisions. We've been making smart decisions, and probably are just being reminded of something that we've been doing. So we encourage you to type in the questions, and as it was being emphasized, no emotions. I also read somewhere where they're saying don't make business decisions when you're in love and out of jealousy. So it looks like all the emotions are being erased there. Nelson Mandela says, may your choices reflect your hopes and not your fears. And Phil McGraw says, sometimes you make right decisions and sometimes you make the decisions right. In case maybe you were listening and you fell more to the stupid decisions, there is time to recover. You can still make the smart decisions because there are some decisions that you need to make right. So it's up to us to go and reflect and think through of those decisions which you have made, which were not so smart, and change them to be smart decisions. Themba, how can one make smart decisions in business and in life in general?
So Tafazo, we've spoken about how we can make smart decisions, and I don't want to repeat myself there. We've spoken about the principles of smart decision making. There's one more point that I want to just add to everything that we have said. And I hope the people that listen to us are getting these particular points. So the first point, before I make this point, let me just recap on what we have been saying. Smart decision making is as a result of experience. Let's just get that, quite clearly. Smart decision making has to do with making decisions that are value-based, decisions that are risk-based, and decisions that maximize value creation for the business person. And that's what smart decision making is all about. And we've also emphasized today that these principles that we are talking about also apply when you are making life decisions, Tafazo. Always consider the payoff vis-a-vis the risk. And when you look at that, you're not going to do some of the things that people do. But the one point that I want to say, Tafazo, especially moving on with the theme of digitization, with the theme of artificial intelligence, and with the theme of machine learning. And this is the point that I want to make. Over time, as you make smart decisions, you'll begin to realize that there are routine decisions that you make, and those routine decisions, you've almost developed a pattern for making those smooth, those routine decisions. What you need to do is to automate that decision making for your business, so that you are not there, making the decisions, all the time. Build a system that is predictable in making those decisions. And building that system could be through delegating to your subordinates so that they understand how those kinds of decisions are made. Why is that important? It's very important as a business person that you are not making all the decisions in your business. Otherwise, you will weigh yourself down. You will run out of time. It's the typical, story of Moses. I don't know if you've read about Moses in the Bible. He wanted to judge every other matter that was happening. And when his father-in-law Jethro visited Moses, Moses is the character that led the children of Israel as they were moving from Egypt into the promised land. And because he was a deliverer, he wanted to make all the decisions when people had conflicts. And Jethro, his father-in-law, had advice to him. And the essence of that advice was, why don't you identify men in the business who can make decisions in the same way as you are making decisions, so that you delegate them to them, and they follow the system and the pattern. And so in business, we need to apply the same concepts. Maybe you are the entrepreneur who has been making all the decisions. You need to build a system around your decision making, particularly with routine decisions. Tafadzo, let me give you an example of what I'm talking about. One of the decisions that a bank has to make is, which person do I give a loan to, so that they don't default. So it's a decision. They do what is called a credit assessment. And in that credit assessment, the outcome of that credit assessment will then lead the decision makers into deciding, should I give a loan to this person or not? But because a bank has learned over time that people like this default, people like this are faithful in paying their loans, they have been able to build a system of decision making to such an extent now that if you apply to a bank, they can make a loan decision in 8 minutes, less than 8 minutes, after you've given them the information. They don't have to do a lot of research, a lot of asking of questions, a lot of whatever, because they have learned over time. And so the first point that I'm making here is that let us learn to make faster decisions, speed of execution, faster, smart decision, and so that you don't take time. Initially, I said hire slowly and fire fast. But after you've had that experience of hiring people over time, you'll begin to know who are the people that actually give you the results and who are the people that do not give you the results. After you've had that experience, you are able to make a hiring decision faster. So all I'm just trying to say here is that capitalize on the learnings that you have had in the past. Capitalize on the trends in technology to be able to make faster decisions. Don't make the decisions yourself. Build a system and delegate to people to make smart decisions. All you need to do is to train people on the system that you have built, so that the people that you are leading are also able to make the smarter decision. That's why mentoring and coaching is very important. We cannot have the luxury of people who come after us repeating the same mistakes that we have made over time. That we cannot do. So that's the one point that I would want to highlight, so that you spend your time on the strategic decisions. That's why Jethro would then say, look, as the deliverer, here I'm talking about Moses, as the deliverer, Just deal with the complex cases. And that's what we must do in life. Let's get to a position that we spend time on the complex issues, on the strategic decisions. And that's what an entrepreneur should also spend time on. But the routine things, you'll be so surprised how people spend time deciding what should I eat today. And should I eat for breakfast sausages? Why don't you build a system and a timetable which says Monday I eat this, Tuesday I do this, and build a timetable, particularly when it comes to routine. The more automation you bring, particularly to routine things, the more you do not spend time deciding on irrelevant things. Which dress should I put on? You will see somebody spending an hour trying this dress. Time is moving. We don't have the luxury of time, because you built that business so as to create time for yourselves. You build that business so as to create systems. So in this point, Tafadzo, what I'm saying is we must build systems of smart decision making in business and build rules that allow people to make smart decisions, so that everything does not revolve around us as entrepreneurs. And then we spend time on on things that really matter. And the way we manage our time becomes very important, so that you do not do what Gary did. When he's supposed to be meeting business people, then he goes out to be flying. We must build systems which says, this is an important person, I must create time for them. Because over time you have known who wastes your time and who does not waste your time. And so you can manage your diary very well, and you are able to eliminate time wasters, so that time wasters do not even get to you. But equally, your systems should be such that you do not miss opportunities, because opportunities will always be coming in business. Let me stop there, Tafadzo. Time is not on our side.
Thank you for that. I remember last week we discussed that hire smarter people than you and surround yourself with smarter people. So I guess from what we discussing on delegation, if you're surrounded by smarter people, then it's easier to delegate and also feel more confident. But sometimes what makes us not to delegate is because we're not confident of the people who are around us and whether they're capable. But if you've hired well and you're confident of the people, and the people who are smarter than you, you have confidence that they will deliver on smart decision making. What would be your closing remarks, Themba?
My closing remarks is that we are living in very uncertain in times of great opportunities. We must build systems of smart decision making in our lives. Don't waste your experience. Don't cry over spilt milk. If you find yourself retrenched, which is becoming a possibility these days, don't cry over spilt milk. You can move on. It's a world where you can learn new skills. But above all, Tafadzo, be smart in your decision making and do not be stupid about decision making.
Thank you about that. And for those who like to get in touch with Themba, he's normally available on LinkedIn. But Duplex Institute website is www.duplexinstitute.com. You can also get hold of us on our email, tafazwa@tafazwamasbuku. Speaks.co.za, and our website is www.tafazwamasbuku.speaks.co.za. You can also subscribe to our YouTube, The Dream That Was Worth Fighting For. Our Dreamers Daily Planner 2024 is available, and you can get hold of it. It's a Crystal Gates Bookshop. If you're in Harare, Westgate, or anywhere in Harare, it's the Crystal Gates Bookshop, or you can contact us on our WhatsApp number that is on the page. We appreciate your support, and we hope you will make smart decisions in your business going forward. Let's implement. We appreciate you and have a great weekend ahead. Thank you very much. Cheers.